Today is World Poetry Day. Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
We're
Doing
good.
great.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so both of you happen to be nominees on the
EAAs, yeah.
ended EAAs.
Yes,
yeah?
that's true.
Okay, okay. Talk to us about the importance of a day like this. Your perspective.
You know, this for poets, this is our day.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if I'm putting it in a Ghanaian perspective, it's poets our day. It's
Yeah.
the day that a lot of noise is supposed to be made, not only about poets, but their craft as well. And I think we've seen the day being celebrated better each year, and there's more emphasis being put on. I think over social media and across various media organizations in the country, there are people finding poets, people are being called left, right, center. It didn't used to be like this. But it's important because this is a day whereby we get to speak about why poetry is important, because it feels as if people don't see the importance of poetry. But my simple answer to why that's important is that poetry is technology.
Really?
Yes, it is. Poetry is technology.
Explain.
I say it is because in our current landscape, if you're celebrating something or if you want to remember something, you take out your phone and you try and grab a picture or so, because currently our devices allow us to do so.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they didn't have that.
Okay.
So back in the day, if you want to remember someone, you need a poet. You need a poet to write something so that when a person is not there and you want to remember, oh, dear Auntie Felicia, you are the one who gave me this and that. And in the craft, you are able to store memories, and you're able to let people remember, feel, link to moments. And that's why I say poetry is technology.
Interesting.
Now, let me find out from you, Emma. You know, so when 100% was speaking, he said that it looks like we are not seeing poetry how we are supposed to see it. Could it be that because it is part of us, you know, as a people, we believe so much in oral literature, you know, and we are always talking, we are always saying stuff, you know, wherever you go, right from the courtyards, you know, to church, to wherever, we are doing poetry, but it appears this is us.
Yes.
So we are not able to, you know, differentiate our everyday life, our everyday stuff that we do from now seeing it as a craft. Is that probably why we are not seeing it in its magnitude like we need to see it?
To a large extent, it is. But then again, there are also many people who do, for instance, there are so many smartphone photographers, but you actually would hire a professional photographer to cover your event. You won't ask someone with a smartphone just to cover something as important to you. What poetry does is it gives us the elevated tongue to communicate thoughts or a thing that is common to us, our human experience, our common humanity, the questions we have on our minds, the fears we have on our minds, and put it in a context that is both educational, entertaining, and uplifting. And so, in as much as we do it every day, it is how polished or how elevated or how much of a value is added to it. And that's where the craft aspect comes in. That's where someone dedicates their time, their life to say, this is my life's work, and I want to pursue this to bring out the best or the finest quality there can be in this space. So, yeah.
I know that one of the things, and for me it's exciting to hear this, but one of the things that is impacting the growth of poetry in Ghana is the incorporation of the Poetry Association. You know, talk to us about what that means to you to actually have an association, you know, and what you see as the potential impact of that.
Well, the association is very recent, fairly recent, and I don't think it's even a month old.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it's
Pretty new.
still
It's fairly
news. It's still worthy news. Not everybody knows about it.
Okay.
We are yet to do a proper communication launch and the likes. But this has been something that has been the struggle for this, or the dedication to get this done, has taken quite a bit of time. And now that we have it, the importance of it is that days like this will, in the future, be taken a bit more seriously. Now you've got an organization that can champion. It's not one lone ranger going somewhere high. Then, because whenever you step into spaces as an individual, you are pretty much just an individual.
Yeah.
You're not anybody. But when you walk in as an association, no, we didn't just come together as some club. We have gone to Register General, we've registered ourselves. Ghana acknowledges that this is who we are. We should be able to move mountains. We should be able to reach certain heights that before on our own we couldn't. But together, we should be able to change the world.
So it's World Poetry Day. How are we celebrating the day?
Today we're actually littered across so many media houses in the country, and that's thanks to the association. The United Front gives us the opportunity to leverage that community and seek for opportunities. And so we're in so many media houses today. There you would find a pair in as many media. I'm actually moving to a different place from here. So we're doing a media tour this morning, and then we'll crown it in the evening in collaboration with the Ghana Association of Writers. We are having, call it a poetic expression night. It's just us coming together, sharing poetry at Powerhouse at 4 p.m. today. So everyone...
That's the
6 p.m.
Pan-African
6:30,
Writers
6:30,
Association.
Yeah, that's around Roman Ridge. So that's how we are crowning the night after the media tours.
Right. Are you two executives of the association?
He is.
I am an executive. Of
What
the
exactly
association.
is your position?
I'm the president of
You
the
are the
association.
president.
Yes.
So no, I'm asking this because,
Yeah.
you know, most of the times when we have associations like this, you know, we fight to have these kind of associations. But when eventually we become an association, there are a whole lot of issues that really take people back. Instead of making sure that, so you realize that some people were doing okay on their own, but now there's an association hoping that things are going to get better, but that won't be the story. What is your plan? I don't know your tenure. I mean, how long you be in office? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't know how long you'll be in there, and what you are going to be doing. So at the end of your tenure, what should we expect, you know, to see the association do?
At the moment, the tenure is 2 years.
Okay.
So it's pretty much, I would say, either started or official, because we were interim as we made the association, you know, official. But the idea is really to set the foundation. As you were mentioning, you start something and everybody sort of gets up and wants to do this and want to do that.
Yeah.
So you have plenty ideas, but whether the foundation has been set for those ideas to reach their required heights becomes an issue. Not because the ideas are not great,
Of course.
but because you've not planned properly. So in the next 2 years, hopefully in the first year, we should be able to have set the foundations in terms of structures, in terms of what is it that we want to do. But my simple goal, even for next year, hopefully we should start seeing this day, World Poetry Day, being taken a bit more seriously with regards to universities having lectures, schools having poets, corporate institutions inviting, you know, poets to explain and to have engagement on why poetry is important within the you know, these spaces. And hopefully these will have also channel economic, you know, benefits, you know, to it, so that the professional poet will not be a rumor. It will become fact. People understand, oh, this is why it's important. And by next year, when you hear why it's that, it doesn't become a strange question. It's like, oh, what do you mean, why poetry? It's by all means it's important because of this. But right now, it is that way because, yes, a body is not there to try and champion these things.
Are we, can I go on? Right, so are we going to have, for instance, poetry clubs, you know, in primary schools, in junior high schools? What's the plan for that? Because I believe in catching them young, you know,
Yes.
and
That's
making them,
important.
You're very right. At the end of the day, you want to try and have as many nests as possible, grooming the poets. And as Emma said, there are going to be people who are going to utilize poetry for professional purposes.
Yeah.
There are also going to be people who are pursuing poetry for personal
for the
reasons.
sake of the
Because
art.
poetry has different meanings, you know, to different people, and it's for us to champion that. You know, there's even internal issues, so I'll say that people feel that one discipline within poetry seems to be better. So people, maybe right now, performance poetry seems to be the
Yeah.
thing. But there is a place, a very important place, for people who do not perform. I just write.
Yeah.
I just write for, and we have to try and push forward each of these. So the task is pretty big. I don't think in the next few months you're going to see bang, and that's why that's why it's important for us to lay the foundation.
Yeah. One of the things that I discovered last week, being Heritage Month and all, I was looking for, I dressed up, on I think it was Tuesday,
Yeah.
The Ga Wolomo outfit, So I was looking for a little write-up to post with my pictures, to explain what the Wolomo was. And I realized that when I went to Wikipedia, the only reference was the band Wolome. That's it. There was nothing on Wikipedia about the whole culture and the priesthood and all of that. I think it's important for us, as we are, creating the association and all of that, to also have a proper way of making sure that we write our own history as far as, let's say, the Poets Association and the history of poetry in Ghana is concerned. Is there any efforts in that direction, as far as Wikipedia and all of that,
I think that's where the media houses play a very key role in that regard, because one thing with Wikipedia is that when major media houses cover, especially do write-ups, written articles about poets and their poetry, it's carried by them. And so if, with the association, if we can be in that position to get alliances, partnerships with media houses, with journalists, with bloggers, who would tell the story the way it's to be told in collaboration with the poets who are behind it, then we will be able to get that leverage with Wikipedia, and I think would go a long way that way, documenting our history and having a lot of write-up on Wikipedia as well.
But currently, how is poetry doing here in Ghana?
I would say that it's doing fairly well. And the reason why I say that is, yes, you were there as well. We had a young gentleman by the name of Vitus.
Yeah.
He had a show. He put together a
The
beautiful
Creative
show,
Convos.
Creative Convos at Alisa. And as much as I'm saying, I know that poetry is blossoming.
Yeah.
I was very impressed, very, very, very impressed with the young poets that I met that day and how seriously they are taking their craft. It's the kind of moment that you're like, wow, this is the future. The future is bright.
Okay.
And this is very recent. So I'm now imagining, what would the next couple of years look like? Because what you've seen today, Emma and I, in terms of our performances, was not something we started yesterday.
Yeah.
It's time, it's history, and I think I've been doing poetry for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Because I started when I was, a kid. But now, if I'm seeing
Yeah.
and somebody say, oh, I started 5 years ago, it's like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
Then when you are 10 years into
Into this,
I can
yeah.
imagine what it is that we are going to see. So it has a very bright future and an opportunity for us to engage not only on a performance level, but also on an intellectual and corporate level as well.
How do we make it better? I mean, earlier when I was speaking, I mentioned poetry as entertainment, poetry for our chiefs. Where I come from, poetry is very prominent, because before the chief speaks, there should be that kind of
Yes.
appellation, and
Yeah.
this is poetry. How do we bring in our culture, our heritage? How do we preserve this? Because I believe that those guys were doing poetry, but they had a different mind of doing it, not doing something commercial, not thinking of, okay, the next 10 years, are we
Yeah.
going to still find this? How are you guys going to make sure that we preserve our heritage through poetry?
We would have to, these are things, it's engagement. So the poet chooses what they want to
Exactly.
speak about.
Yes.
But when there are challenges, when there are issues and it's presented that, hey, we hear this, but we want to, like, for instance, today's World Poetry Day. Let's write about World Poetry Day. Let's write about what is happening in the different parts of the world. Let's write about what's happening in Ghana,
Yeah.
and we start putting anthologies together, there start being performances. You start doing things and engaging with other stakeholders so that it's not restricted to a performance space. And when you start having testimonies, like somebody being even outside and saying, you know, I miss Ghana so much, but when I heard that poem, it made me remember. Then you know you're getting something. But these are not going to happen in silos. We need to engage. And if you're engaging with other practitioners in the media spaces, you start to see the gaps. And you start to realize, okay, our next poem has to be about Kilewele.
Okay.
Because that it's only when you engage that you start seeing, because we don't, as much as we said that we are inspired by many things, but engagement essentially I can say is the common denominator of all these things. So we need to engage more, and then the solutions will come.
Fantastic.
Right. So, no, just the last one. No, I'm a literature student, you know, so I really love things about literature, you know, and everything performing arts, you know. So, if government is listening, you know, if the Ministry of Tourism, Creative Arts is listening, what should they do? Now you have an association. What should happen to make sure that we push poetry forward?
I think one of the things we can do as government or as stakeholders in decision-making capacity is to start from the place of commissioning poets to do important and significant things.
Okay.
For instance, let's bring it home, right? City FM's Heritage Month, partnering with poets to do write-ups across that. I think there was a time where you toured all of Ghana.
Heritage Caravan.
Heritage Caravan. So if there was a poet or poets were commissioned to come along on that journey, document the stops we get to the various heritage sites, right? The pockets of them would pick from different angles and would be inspired by different things on those sides. That is something where we can start from basic without having to pass a bill or do anything
No,
Herculean.
you're not government.
But then again, if we're talking about government, they can also commission works and have, because then the poet will continue doing professional poetry if it has an income line tied to it. And we can't always be saying they're writing by inspiration, writing by passion if they are not being paid. So
That
let's
exposure is also
that
very
exposure,
key.
that financial bit to it is also very key, so that people can commit fully to doing it and not have to do it as a hobby on the past. So government can actually look at provisions in budgetary allocations. I think there was actually a provision for the creative arts industry in the last budget that was read. Now as a unit together with a united front, I think we can be able to access that. And the tourism industry can also look at creating platforms, opportunities for engagement, planning together with us, not in isolation, so that it's like, this is what we think they will need, but what do we think together we will all need to make this work, and that should be helpful.
I found it very interesting, you know, that at the launch of the private jet terminal, you know, there was an artist, you know, on set as well as a poet, you know, and so to see a high-profile event like that and have poets on, you know, doing a performance. I mean, for me, that's like doing important things.
It gives us a lot to look forward
It gives
to.
leverage. You know,
Yeah.
it just shows that. Yeah.
I think
Thank
now we understand poetry and the
so.
role it plays.
Yeah.
you know.
We're doing better. We can push it and not make
Absolutely.
it the thing we throw in to do. Oh, there's a lot of talk. Let's break it with some poetry. Like it's the last thing. Let's not make it. I think
the musicians are not there, so let's
so
bring
let's
the
bring
poet.
and it's always last minute.
Yeah.
Like it's always.
We apologize on behalf
So
of
that narrative should change
Yeah,
going
I
forward, so that
agree with you.
it's an integral part. The way
Absolutely.
people pay attention to inviting speakers, sending letters months ahead, giving them
The
time
same
to
way,
prepare, asking them for budget.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the same way, not like,
Yeah.
oh, we have an event, come and perform and we give you TNT.
Yeah. And,
We understand. We do better.
and it will be good for your exposure.
It will be, you know, the exposure. Today's fuel. And E-Levy coming, exposure.
It affects words. It affects the words. You know, the pure
It's P levy. There's
It's
a P. There's a
P-levy.
P levy.
Oh, God.
There's a poetry levy. Don't worry.
Oh,
Thank you,
it
guys.
affects the language, you're right.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We'll be speaking with 100% and Emma Fosuah. And look, poetry is going to be part of our future, big time, as it has been part of our history.